Now, if you want to really drive him crazy, you say 12 more years. Because we caught them doing some really bad things in 2016. Let's see what happens. We caught them doing some really bad things. We have to be very careful because they're trying it again with this whole 80 million mail-in ballots that they're working on.
Mail-in voting is usually safe. We've been doing it since the Civil War.
Sending them out to people that didn't ask for them. They didn't ask, they just get them.
Lies.
And it's not fair, and it's not right, and it's not going to be possible to tabulate, in my opinion. It's just my opinion.
Your opinion, just like most of your opinions, is wrong.
We have to be very, very careful, and you have to watch. Every one of you have to watch. Because bad things happened last time with the spying on our campaign, and that goes to Biden, and that goes to Obama. And we have to be very, very careful. Have to be very, very careful. And this time they're trying to do it with the whole post office scam. They'll blame it on the post office. You could see them setting it up.
If the Democrat plan was to use the USPS's inaccuracy to get in a bunch of other votes, then why would it be trying to provide the USPS with $25 billion extra dollars? That would undoubtedly make the counting more accurate, wouldn't it? Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose?
Be very careful and watch it very carefully, because we have to win. This is the most important election in the history of our country. This is the most, for a long period of time, I would say, well, 2016, how special was that evening? Was that one of the great? That was one of the great evenings. But we have to be very, very careful, and we have to win. Our country is counting on it. This is the biggest. This is it. Our country can go in a horrible, horrible direction.
Biden is a centrist. There's no horrible centrist because you're literally in the middle.
Or in an even greater direction. And before the plague came in from China, that's where we were going. We were going in a direction like we had never seen. The most successful economy in the history of our country.
That's not true. And before you took office, Obama's economy was growing at a faster rate than yours was.
The best unemployment numbers in history for African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, women, college students, bad students, good students, everybody. If you had a diploma, if you didn't have a diploma, it didn't matter, you were doing well. Everybody was doing well.
Wrong. Unemployment may have been low, but underemployment, that was sky high.
And we were actually coming together. Success brings people together. Maybe better than anything else. Success brings people. So many times they say, we're divided. Well, we were very divided under President Obama. Very divided. People have no idea how divided. They didn't talk about it as much. They didn't say it as much. But we were really coming together. And I was speaking with Democrats all of a sudden because the markets were at an all-time high. And by the way, take a look at what's happening with the markets. Take a look at your 401ks, which you probably do every hour. Take a look at your stocks. We're very close to breaking the record, and NASDAQ has already done it. NASDAQ has broken the record, I think, 16 times already during a pandemic. Hopefully we'll call it the final phase of a pandemic,
First of all, the stock market is not the economy. 88% of all stock value is owned by the top 10% in wealth. Now, another reason why the stock market has rebounded so well is the election of Biden. Biden, just like you, is a neoliberal corporatist hack. Wall Street can depend on either Biden or you to give huge bailouts, which means there's no risk involved when it comes to selling or buying stock. The stock market is also looking 6 to 7 months ahead all the time. They know that once the vaccine is finished testing and released to the public, the coronavirus will be largely under control, allowing the economy to recover. The real unemployment rate is still somewhere around 20%, so it's too early to start celebrating now.
Biden the other day said, no, he'd shut it down. He'd listen to some guy say, and he'd shut it down.
Citation needed.
We just broke a record on jobs, an all-time record. There's never been 3 months where we've put more people to work, over 9 million people.
Congratulations for re-employing some of the 30 million people who lost their jobs in the first place.
And again, we're just about ready to break the all-time stock market record. I mean, you look at it, we're just about ready to do it again. And what that means is everything else is going to follow. Very smart on Wall Street. Everything else is going to be there. The economy is coming up very rapidly. Our farmers are doing well. Our farmers are doing well because I got China to give them $28 billion because they were targeted by China.
If you saw the DNC a week ago, you'd know how farmers were really taking the trade war.
I got the farmers $28 billion, 16 and 12. That's why. So in spite of the pandemic, and our farmers did a great job in supplying food and all of the difficulties during this period of time, but we're getting ready to do things like nobody's ever seen before. But the best way to bring unity is success. Success brings unity, and we were there, and then we got hit with the plague.
We didn't get hit with the plague. The plague walked into the door that you opened for it.
But we won't forget that. I just want to thank the people of North Carolina. On November 4th, you know, these Democrat governors, they love shutdown until after the election's over because they want to make our numbers look as bad as possible for the economy. But our numbers are looking so good. And frankly, I used to say a V, and people would say, well, maybe not. I don't think so. Some would say, no way. We have a super V. You're right.
Dumb bitch.
It's now looking like it's a super V. Our automobile numbers are incredible, both used cars and brand new cars. Our manufacturing numbers incredible. We're putting a lot of manufacturing jobs to work that the previous administration said you'd need a magic wand.
From the Great Recession, Biden and Obama literally bailed out the auto companies and brought back manufacturing jobs, so I don't know what you're talking about.
You'd need a magic wand for manufacturing jobs. I don't think so. I guess we had the magic wand, that's all, but we're putting them again, we're putting them back, we're bringing them back.
Well, the coronavirus epidemic wiped out half of those jobs, so good job.
But think of your life just prior to the plague coming in. It was the best it's ever been. Your state had the best numbers they've ever had by far. And we had the best employment numbers also. We were up to 160 million jobs. We were never anywhere near that.
Again, jobs grew quicker under Obama than it grew under you.
And then we had to shut it down. We saved millions and millions of lives.
And failed to save 170,000 and counting.
We learned the enemy. We learned all about the invisible enemy.
Scientists still barely know shit about this.
How it affects really people that are older, especially older people, the elderly, but older people with problems with heart, with diabetes, with other problems. And we learned, and most of the country is right now doing very, very well. They've done an incredible job. And to have a man sitting on television the other day say, oh, I'd shut it down. Oh, I'd shut it down. Like it's easy, shut it down. And by the way, when you shut it down, and we did the exact right thing, we shut it down, then we reopened, and that's what we're doing now. We're well into it. But if we didn't shut it down at that point, we would have had millions of people dead.
So are the shutdowns good or are they bad? Make up your mind.
Millions of people. You see the numbers. The job that Mike Pence and the task force and all of us together have done has been incredible, what we've done, what we've achieved. Whether it's ventilators, whether it's supplying equipment to governors that were totally ill-prepared.
You failed at providing the necessary equipment and didn't use the Defense Production Act until it was too late.
Many of the governors were totally ill-prepared. Nobody wants to say that, but it's supposed to work that way. Federalist. Supposed to work that way. The governors are supposed to do it.
A national issue requires a national effort, idiot.
Many of them did a fine job, and many of them came back well. But most of them didn't have the equipment that they should have had. Few of them had the ventilators, which are very, very complex machines and hard to make and hard to manufacture and expensive. And we're right now making thousands of ventilators a month, and we're sending them. We have all we can use. Our whole country, every state, we're stocked.
Just a week ago, the FDA released a list telling us that surgical gowns, gloves, masks, ventilators, and certain other supplies like testing supplies are actually undersupplied still.
We're stocked. And I always say it, I'll say it again. There's never been a person that needed a ventilator that didn't get a ventilator.
There's insufficient data on this issue to actually make that statement.
Every single person that's ever needed a ventilator, with all that you've heard, with how much, they said we didn't have. Again, I took over a country whose military was depleted.
Yeah, the budget was only larger than that of the next 9 countries combined, so you increased it to 10. Wonderful.
And whose cupboard on this front were bare. The cupboards were bare. We didn't have anything. We didn't have a thing. We had very, very little.
If only your predecessor established some sort of pandemic task force to be able to quickly respond to these types of issues.
And we did a great job. We haven't been given, and it's not for me, it's for the incredible people, the generals, the admirals, all of the doctors, the nurses. And yet you saw yesterday convalescent plasma, you saw remdesivir.
Speaking of, a 10-day treatment using remdesivir in the United States costs $4,500, although the company could charge as little as $10 and still recover all of their costs. So how come Gilead, who got federal funding to produce remdesivir, gets to operate at a 45,000% profit margin? It's time to recognize the private healthcare industry for what it is, a price-gouging middleman which does nothing to help the American people.
You'll soon see vaccines pouring out years ahead of what they would have been under a more traditional, let's use that term because it's nicer, a more traditional administration.
Or maybe if you hadn't disbanded the pandemic task force, you would have had the vaccine ready by now.
Where they would have taken years to come up with this stuff. We're coming up with it like nobody's ever seen before. The FDA, Dr. Hahn, I want to thank him. Alex Azar, I want to thank him. They've come with things and done things that have never been done in terms of speed and frankly in terms of quality. If you look at what we're doing and what we're coming up with, drug companies are coming out with vaccines that are, I've seen some results already. It's going to be very, very soon. They're in stage 3 trials. It's unheard of. We wouldn't be there for 2 years if this were a more normal situation.
Now you're just making shit up. Just because the common flu might take a vaccine 2 years to develop doesn't mean a national emergency would take just as long.
So I just want to thank everybody for being here. And again, I felt an obligation to come to North Carolina.
Story time with Uncle Donnie, talking about how he loves Wisconsin and weird shit like that. Just personal stories, who cares?
Then I turned to MSDNC, as I call it. MSDNC, which is truly, it is a branch of the Democrats. It's right.
Well, that's true enough, I suppose.
I wouldn't say fully owned corporation, but it's certainly a fully controlled, or they control them. Nobody really knows who's controlling who. Instead, they're showing the scam because they're trying to show the post office so that when their whole mail-in thing fizzles, they'll try blaming it on the post office.
If the Democrats really wanted the post office to fail, then why would they be the ones trying to provide extra funding?
Okay, so they're showing these hearings that are very boring, actually. I can promise you a few things. Number one, we will not be taking the word God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, okay?
I wish they would, because it's a pretty clear violation of the Establishment Clause, but by now it's too far entrenched to be taken out easily.
Like they did a number of times at their caucuses, so they took the word God out. I heard it. I was listening. I said, that's strange, sort of weird. You've heard it all your life, right?
The words "under God" were only added to the pledge in 1954, meaning you were alive when those words were not part of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Under God, under God. All of a sudden, those 2 words are missing. I said, oh, he must have made a mistake. He must have, maybe the teleprompter wasn't working, or his book wasn't working that I have right here. Something wasn't working. Must have meant, but the problem was then the next day I heard it again. I said, that's not a mistake. That's pretty, and then they immediately went into a mode. No, we didn't mean that. No. We didn't say it for the convention. We didn't say it. No, that's where they're coming from. That's where they're coming from. You can say it or not say it. That is where they're coming from.
Is this the scandal you think will push you over the edge? I thought you were for free speech. That means free expression. That means you cannot compel speech. If you actually think the Pledge of Allegiance needs the word under God, well, you're just not as much of a free speech president as you think.
Just like with energy, they don't want energy.
No, we want clean energy that won't fuck with the environment.
Not working well in Texas, by the way. I just looked at a poll.
Are you seriously trusting Texas for wisdom?
And by the way, it just came out that we have received 51% in the big and very important Rasmussen poll.
That poll was sponsored by Liberty Nation, a conservative news organization.
And my numbers actually went up during the Democratic National Convention.
All right, that's not surprising considering how bad that was.
They give you these suppression polls where they do registered voters instead of most likely. It's supposed to be likely. In other words, how about you? You're likely to vote. But how about you? You're registered, but I'm not voting.
Why would the Democrats want to make it seem like you're far behind? If anything, they'd probably prefer you seem like you're far ahead. That way you'll let your foot off the gas pedal.
But see, under their plan, where they send these ballots, you don't have to want to vote. You get the ballot, and then they have harvesting. They get guys to go, do you want to vote? No, not really, but I have a ballot. All right, good. Who's it for? Sleepy Joe Biden. I'll put it here, son. Okay, could I have it? And they'll take it.
This entire conspiracy theory is just made up.
They're going to mail out 80 million ballots.
Yeah, the Postal Service handled over 140 billion pieces of mail last year, and that wasn't even an election year. So the idea that 80 million ballots will be hard for the USPS to handle, absolute shit crap.
It's impossible. They have no idea. Who's mailing them? Mostly Democrat states and Democrat governors. Well, supposing they don't mail them to Republican neighborhoods.
Lies.
That means they're not going to get them. So they're going to complain, and the election's going to be over, and then they're going to complain, and then they'll say, oh, well, we didn't get it. Big deal. In the meantime, you might lose the election.
Aren't you doing the same thing you're accusing the Democrats of doing? You're also preempting all this election business by complaining beforehand.
If you have an absentee ballot where you request it, we're all in favor of that. Absentee, like in Florida, they have absentee is good. But other than that, they're very, very bad.
Mail-in and absentee balloting are essentially identical. In fact, some states don't even differentiate between the two.
There'll be millions of ballots. Take a look at New York. Take a look at Virginia. Take a look at New Jersey. All different cases. They just had one last night. Now they're thinking about recalling certain elections that took place with mail-in.
More making shit up.
They said 23% of the ballots were defective.
First of all, citation needed. Second of all, when a ballot is listed as missing, it could be because of a multitude of reasons, some of which include the person simply not returning the ballots, a wrong signature, but none of these actually amount to fraud in any sort of significant numbers that we've seen so far.
What does defective mean? It means fraud.
Lies.
It means a lot of things that we won't get into because I don't want to be accused. You see all the cameras back there? It's the fake news. I don't want to be accused of anything. But what it means is they're trying to steal the election from the Republicans. That's what it means.
No, you're the one who's trying to steal the election. It's pretty obvious because your sycophants are too stupid to realize that going out and voting in person is dangerous. You're sacrificing the people in your base just for more money and power. That is keeping with the theme of Republicans sacrificing the later for the now.
In a very, very nice way, I will tell you, they are trying to steal the election, just like they did it last time with spying.
Unlike your accusation, which is completely baseless, you, or at least some of your lackeys in the campaign, collaborated with Russia to hack into the emails of Hillary Clinton to steal the election. Now, we don't know how much you colluded, but at least we know that you did.
And we caught them, and that included President Obama, and that included them, and they got caught. And then somebody said, well, what are you going to do? Well, we can't attack a president. Oh, I see. If it was me. They said, we can't attack a president. We caught him. We caught him cold. And they say, we can't attack. He was at meetings. talking about it. And by the way, this was spying before and after.
You're the President of the United States, and your Justice Department is acting as your personal lawyer. If you really have evidence, why don't you prosecute?
And I think it's a disgrace to our country. I think we can never let that happen again. But now they're doing something that in a certain way is more dangerous because it's more effective. They spied on my campaign. You know what they found? Nothing.
That's right, you were keeping your tax returns close to your chest, but we'll get to them sooner or later.
But this is big stuff. This is stealing millions of votes, and it's going to be very hard. Now, we're in courts all over the country, and hopefully we have judges that are going to give it a fair call.
I hope so. In fact, I know so because once this reaches the Supreme Court, I can trust that Chief Justice John Roberts will at least make the obviously correct decisions.
Because if they give it a fair call, we're going to win this election. The only way they can take this election away from us is if this is a rigged election.
This is clearly a setup where Trump will refuse to acknowledge the results of the election once he gets voted out of office.
We're going to win this election. We're going to win this election. So I'm just saying we cannot have these live, we call them live. Some people call them universal. I like the word live. These live mail-in ballots sent to everybody, including mostly people that never asked for them.
What's wrong with mailing ballots to people who haven't asked for them? They can just vote then.
Think of it. You're sitting there, you get a ballot. Here's the bottom line. It was just given that in the polls, believe it or not, that because the polls try and treat us right. That's why I respect Rasmussen, because they did well. A few of the others feel the same way, and they did well last time. Those are the ones that I look at, the ones that did well last time.
So now you're just basically admitting that you're ignoring all the information that doesn't fit your preconceived narrative.
And Rasmussen was very good. But if you look at it, every single vote that they have, every single vote, it's going to be looked at. A man is sitting, or a woman is sitting, waiting for nothing, watching television, has no enthusiasm. Because on enthusiasm, the polls are saying that I'm up, but I'm up by massive numbers on enthusiasm. So our voters are saying, I'm very angry about this, I'll go to the poll directly and vote. But their voters are saying, I don't care if Biden gets in. He doesn't have any enthusiasm.
Yeah, fine, you're way ahead. Don't change your campaign strategy because it's totally working.
But here's the thing. So if they don't have any enthusiasm, so you'd say, are you going to vote? I'm not getting up to vote. Okay, I want to watch television instead of vote. All right. But here's a ballot. It just got to you. And he opens it. Oh, here's a ballot. What the hell am I going to do with this thing? And then they have somebody knocking on your door.
So they're going to send people to knock on 80 million doors?
And they're harvesting. Hey, have you gotten your ballot? Yeah, I have my ballot. You going to sign it? Well, if you want, I'll sign it. Here it is. Get out of here. That's the most honest way of doing it. And that's unfair. That's unfair. Because now they're taking all of that enthusiasm that our party has. And we have tremendous enthusiasm. I think we have record enthusiasm. We have a base. We have a base the likes of which nobody's seen, including these people. Wall Street Journal did a fantastic story this weekend, a fantastic cover story this weekend on this base. Is an incredible base. Everybody here is going to vote. Everybody in our base. I mean, we have a tremendous base. They don't. They have no enthusiasm for their candidate. Because frankly, Bernie Sanders, they have much more enthusiasm for him. But Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders got taken advantage of, is that okay? By Hillary Clinton. But worse, by the Democrats this time.
Looks like he's about to say something I actually agree with.
Because if Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, got out of the campaign one day prior to the Super Tuesday vote, Bernie Sanders would have won every single state because Biden won by a little bit, and she didn't do well, but she took thousands and thousands of votes away in each state. If you add just a percentage of those votes back, that means that Bernie would have won easily the nomination. And I'm glad he didn't because he had much more enthusiasm. Yeah. And he would have had a base, much smaller base than ours, but equally, I have to say this, equally as enthusiastic.
Actually, Bernie would be much better at mobilizing the general population to vote for him than you because the American population overwhelmingly supports Medicare for all and other policies he supports.
This base doesn't like Joe Biden. They don't like Joe Biden. I think we're going to get a lot of votes. We did last time. People were surprised, primarily because of trade, because I know how other countries take advantage of us, and I understand that. And that's something that Bernie Sanders people really feel.
Nope. Biden's trade policy is actually better than you. He actually outflanked you.
Because I understand trade.
No, you don't. Your understanding of trade is basically the old, out-of-date system of mercantilism.
I've done USMCA now. I got rid of NAFTA, the world's worst trade deal.
The differences between NAFTA and the USMCA are basically negligible in terms of economic impact.
China tariffs. I mean, China had the worst year they've had in 67 years prior to the plague.
So, I don't care. I care about how America's doing, and America is losing money because of your tariffs.
The worst year they've had in decades and decades, and we had the best year we've ever had. But we took in billions from China. We never took in 10 cents from China. Never took in 10 cents. They took China for 25 years, and not only Obama, for 25 years, China was taking in anywhere between 200 billion with a B and $550 billion from the United States.
See, he's basically a mercantilist. Let me get this straight. The free trade between nations is like any other free market. It benefits both sides.
Give them all the credit. Number one, for being smart and outfoxing all of the people that stood here.
No actually smart person ever needs to say that they're smart.
And their representatives. But China, we built China. We helped.
I don't fucking care about China. Skip.
So they take the enthusiasm now out of the equation because they're going to go knock on everybody's door.
First of all, that's impractical and not happening. Second of all, that's still legal.
Here, would you sign this? Yeah, I'll sign it. Nobody knows who the hell is signing it. And they now want to have it where the signature doesn't have to be verified.
Ballots are checked for matching signatures, but more importantly, has anybody ever checked any signatures ever?
Yeah. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election.
How?
They're using COVID to defraud the American people, all of our people, of a fair and free election. And we can't do that. And don't let them give you the post office stuff. The Postal Service, they do a great job. Lose a lot of money.
Thanks to the Postal Accountability Act, which was passed by Republicans, you can't make the postal office inefficient and then complain that it's inefficient.
I've said if they charged Amazon and these companies doing that a couple of dollars more a package.
There's literally a federally set limit to how much they can package their boxes. You think they wouldn't have tried that already?
That Amazon has to pay, not the customer.
The company expenses are always passed down either to the customer or the worker. Some more bullshit about package pricing.
I just tell it like it is, right?
Nope.
We've accomplished more during the first 3.5 years of this administration than any president in the history of our country.
What the fuck does that mean?
And I'm not even getting, pushback.
You have gotten pushback, but in case you didn't, it's probably because what you're saying is so fractally wrong it's not even worth responding to. Blah, blah, blah.
We've secured our borders.
Not really.
We've built our wall, which will be finished very shortly.
I'm afraid even if you build walls shortly, it still won't be cost effective, especially since it'll require a shortlier ladder too.
We brought back manufacturing jobs.
No, we're steadily losing manufacturing jobs to overseas.
We've defeated the ISIS caliphate and killed al-Baghdadi.
You did weaken ISIS a lot, but it's still around.
We also killed the greatest, biggest terrorist, maybe of them all. Soleimani, we killed Soleimani, right?
And almost started World War III in the process, the effects of which are still rolling in. Notice how the UN rejected your motion to block Iran from making arms deal purchases. This is because they realized the US could attack them at any time and therefore they have a right to defend themselves.
And al-Baghdadi. We appointed 300 new judges. By the end of the first term, we will have appointed 300. It's an unheard of number.
Yeah, weren't you supposed to be draining the swamp? And how come there are still hundreds of federal positions still left open Because you don't care that bureaucratic functions fail, you only care that the judges will rule in your favor.
That's because President Obama was very nice and he gave me 142 openings. And historically, you get no open. When you become president, first question you say, how many judges? They'll say, none, sir. Because the other previous president, they want to, it's a very important thing, federal judges. So I've appointed, we will have appointed 300, could be even more than that by the end of the first term. And I sat down, I said, first day I said, how many judges do I get to appoint? They said, sir, 142. I said, 100, because you know what? He thought that Hillary was going to win.
Boy, are the Democrats a bad political party.
Right? And the Republicans did not make it easy, let's say, but if you have enough time, there's not much anybody can do about it. We ended up with 142 judges, and then we've added many, and we're going to end up with 302 great Supreme Court justices.
I love it when rapists are appointed to the highest court in the land.
Let Biden put up a list of the judges he's going to appoint.
This has nothing to do with policy, and it's boring.
The radical left will demand that he appoints super radical left, wild, crazy justices.
Boy, I wish.
Going into the Supreme Court, your American dream will be dead.
Yeah, those far leftists that want to redistribute the wealth so the poor can get a leg up, they're gonna destroy the American dream, y'all.
If that happens, it'll be dead. The next one could have 2, 3, 4, and even 5, the next president. This is so important. This is so, whether you're talking about life, whether you're talking about Second Amendment, whether you're talking about military, this is so important. We have to do this. We have to win this election. But we brought back manufacturing. We rebuilt our military. We wiped out ISIS. I mean, think of it. When I came, ISIS was all over Iraq. The Prime Minister of Iraq was in last week.
I don't care about your made-up heroic war hawk stories.
But we passed the biggest tax cuts and regulation cuts in the history of our country.
Ballooning the national debt even greater than it already was. And then coronavirus struck.
We replaced the worst trade deal ever made, NAFTA, with a great USMCA deal that's going to keep our companies here, and it's going to be treating us very nicely. And I wouldn't say the other two countries were thrilled with it, but they were happy enough.
Again, the impact of the new agreement is negligible.
And we did that, and that's another thing. They said, you'll never be able to replace NAFTA. You'll never be able to get it. And I got it. We got it through Congress.
Because it was basically no different from NAFTA.
We fixed a lot of our broken and bad trade deals. We're getting $40 billion now from Japan. We fixed a horrible deal that was made with South Korea. Remember, I was a Hillary Clinton special. She said, this will produce 250,000 jobs. And she was right. Except, unfortunately, the jobs went to South Korea, not to us.
Trump's revised deal with South Korea basically did nothing.
She said it would produce 250,000 jobs. And it did, to South Korea. And we stood up to China like nobody's ever stood up between the tariffs and the trade deal, which
is hurting American farmers along with much more because the American people are paying for this.
Don't forget, when I made that, the ink wasn't dry before the China virus poured into our country, right? The ink wasn't dry. So I view that differently than I would have viewed, because it's done very well. Last week they had the largest order of corn, the largest order of soybeans. They're doing things, they're very smart. A lot of people.
I don't care about how your imaginary friends treat you.
We've achieved American energy independence, and we're now number 1 in the world by far.
Number 1 at what? Energy independence? What does that even mean? And you did that by loosening environmental regulations, which again means you're trading the future for the present. It's all going to come back to bite us in the ass later on.
And I saw where these phonies, they want to end everything we've done. They want to end it. They want to go to wind. They don't even know if they want to go to wind. I think they want to just basically close up our country.
Who? What? What? Huh?
Because they're taking away our strength. But they want to do something. But there is no such thing. Solar can't do it.
Yeah, it absolutely could.
I love solar, it's all fine. Very, very heavily expensive, very expensive. But they want to go to other forms of alternate alternative energy. And I think that's okay, except we don't have them.
That's why we're investing in them.
And it's not going to power these massive factories. So we need, and hydro I love. It's one of my all-time favorites. Hydro I love, I have to tell you. That's the great dams. You don't see that too much. You know why the environmentalists say you can't build a dam there?
You could do worse than hydro, I guess.
But now we can, because we've done things that nobody thought were possible. Like, example, the Keystone Pipeline, we got that approved. The Dakota Access Pipeline, they were all bogged down, right? Right? I got it approved.
All challenged by environmental groups for good reason.
Now we've got things that they said you couldn't get done. So we're energy independence, and they said we want to ban fracking.
Yeah, because fracking kind of destroys the environment where you're doing it.
No fracking. They want to. How do you think they'll do in Texas, Oklahoma, North Dakota? Louisiana's going to love it. There's no fracking. There's basically, they want no fossil fuel whatsoever, okay? No gas, no oil, no coal, no nothing.
Sounds fucking dandy swell to me, but that's not going to happen until 2050, according to Biden.
Okay, so they don't want anything. Now, they're getting killed, because a poll just came out in Texas.
First of all, Texas is not a good benchmark for wisdom. Second of all, Biden's actually competitive in Texas. It's pretty surprising.
Texas wasn't happy. They want no guns.
I wish. Biden's just going to implement universal background checks, which over 90% of the U.S. population supports, and he's going to close gun show loopholes as well.
They want no oil and gas.
I wish.
They want no God.
I wish.
No God. So it's no religion.
That'd be nice.
No guns, right? No oil and gas. I don't think you're going to do too good in Texas. You know, George Washington could come back from the dead, and he could choose as his VP candidate the late, great Abraham Lincoln. And you're not going to win the state of Texas if you have no oil, no guns, and no religion.
Well, I certainly hope not. George Washington owned slaves, and Abraham Lincoln was still racist, and he started an illegal war to save the Union.
I don't think so. You're not going to win too many places. We eliminated Obamacare's horrible and very unfair individual mandate, which basically knocked out Obamacare.
Great. The thing that was keeping Obamacare afloat and also ensuring that people who were in low risk wouldn't suddenly go bankrupt when some freak accident happened is gone. Wonderful.
It knocked out Obamacare. We've protected your Second Amendment, so important.
The Second Amendment is not important at all. I mean, it was supposed to be there so that you could resist the government, but that's clearly not happening these days. So the other argument is self-defense, but we all know that guns are a terrible self-defense weapon. They're kind of an offense, shoot people from a distance and kill them while they're not looking kind of weapon.
We protected your Second Amendment. We've cut drug prices, first time in 51 years.
PolitiFact rated this statement as mostly false.
We got drug prices down. Now I did a favored nations clause, meaning we pay the same price as the lowest country that has the best deal.
We have yet to see if that'll actually work.
The companies are going crazy, the drug companies. They're taking ads on me. I said,
I have not seen any of that. And besides, opposing you means supporting the Democrats, and I don't see the drug companies doing that.
I went to Mark Meadows. I said, Mark,
I don't care about your whack-ass stories.
we have countries out there that are paying a tiny fraction of what our people are expected to pay.
Why? Because thanks to establishment politicians, the government is no longer allowed to negotiate drug prices directly with the manufacturers. Great job.
So if you have a country, Germany or others, they make, by the way, UK, all of Europe, Canada pays 50%, 50% less. In fact, people leave our country, go to Canada, pick up their drugs, and they come back home. Can you believe it? This is the kind of difference.
Here's a clue. They all have single-payer systems.
So I say, no, I want a favored nations clause. I also want a rebate clause, a rebate where instead of the money going to the middleman, who have to be the richest people in the world, they get so much. They get more money, frankly, than the drug companies. At least the drug companies make a product. So I wiped out the rebate where now it goes to people, and I instituted what's called a favored nations clause. And it's very simple. You have that in deals. It's whatever the lowest price in the world. We're the biggest purchaser of prescription drugs by far in the world. So whatever the lowest price is that other countries pay. So if you have a country paying 10 cents for a pill and we're paying $2.50, and it's not such an exaggeration, believe me, then we get it for 10. So what happens is that doesn't work, so they'll go up a little bit, we'll come way, way down. So I said, favored nations, I want to pay what the lowest price is anywhere in the world. We're the biggest purchaser. We want a favored nations. They had a heart attack. And then I signed it. They didn't believe it.
Some have questioned whether you have the power to do that or whether it will actually work. That remains to be seen, so I'll withhold judgment for now.
And now what they're doing is they have ads, millions and millions of dollars worth of ads that I've been horrible to the people because of drugs.
Nah, I don't think it's drugs. I think it's just your brain that's muddled
And
up.
I believe in socialism. Socialism. You know why? Because some of the socialistic countries get the lowest price. So the only thing I have with socialism is I want to get their price, okay? That's the only thing. Other than that...
Just talked yourself into a corner, did you? Well, time to just bust out by randomly shouting a catchphrase.
Our country will never be a socialist country.
Look how your groupies just unthinkingly follow along with whatever the fuck you're saying.
So we cut drug prices, and you could get cuts. You could get cuts. You could get cuts as much as 50, 60, or 70%, maybe even more than that.
You know what would cut prices by 100%? Medicare for all.
Wouldn't it be a kick in the ass? If I lost and Sleepy Joe is president, and this thing kicks in right about soon, right, in 30, 40 days, and people wake up after the election. Boy, Biden's done a great job. My drug prices just went down by 70%. What a great president he's been. He's great. And Sleepy Joe would say, I thought about that, but everybody knew about favored nations, but nobody had the guts to do it.
Biden's current plan is to repeal the law that forbids Medicare from negotiating for drug prices, so that problem will be solved either way.
And I'll tell you, I was called by many politicians, please don't do it, sir. Please. I said, why? They don't want to tell me why. I know why, because, they're politicians and they've been helped out. And I guess we have to understand that too.
The hypocrisy is strong with you, who have had tons of government officials stay over at Mar-a-Lago and other of your properties so that you could generate millions of dollars off of American tax money.
But the fact is that we signed a favored nations clause and a rebate clause, and your numbers are going to come down 60, 70%. And I hope you remember that on November 3rd, because nobody but me would ever do it.
Joe Biden's healthcare plan is overall better.
The other thing I've done, aside from very strongly protecting your Second Amendment, which was not easy. That was not easy. And by the way, they will take your guns away as sure as you're standing or sitting there.
Lies.
They will take your guns away. Either that or obliterate the Second Amendment. The right to bear arms. You have the right to bear arms, especially when you look at a Portland and you see how weak those Democrats are. The governor, the mayor, how pathetic. They let them riot every night.
They were handling it, and the riots started dying down, but then you sent your secret police in, and then the rioters came back up and started rioting about the police.
We're saying, let us come in and solve your problem. We will solve it for you in 1 hour, just like we did in Minneapolis, Minnesota, right?
By shooting rubber bullets and tear gas into crowds of peaceful protesters, depriving them of their right to peacefully assemble.
5 nights, 6 nights, they have to ask us in. Let us come in, we'll solve your problem. They're almost used to it. This is the way our whole country would be if you ever let a thing like this happen.
This is the way things are with you as president. What the fuck are you talking about? Maybe if we had a president that respected its citizens, we wouldn't be rioting about how the president doesn't respect the citizens.
Our whole country would be. So we protected your pre-existing conditions, very strongly protected pre-existing, and you don't hear that.
Because you didn't do that. Obamacare is the thing that protects people from pre-existing conditions. Also, under you, 10 million people or more have lost health insurance, and even more people are underinsured.
We very strongly protected your pre-existing conditions. So we got rid of the horrible individual mandate, which cost everybody a fortune.
You're only mandated to get it if you can afford it. What would really cost a fortune is if you assume that you were healthy and then got sick, let's say because of coronavirus, and then you didn't have insurance because, let's say, your employer fired you because your job is tied to your insurance somehow. If that medical system was enacted in America, let's say, I'd call that a complete failure.
And we strongly protect it. Every Republican is sworn to protecting your pre-existing conditions. It's very important. You won't hear that. You won't hear that from the fake news.
Because it's not newsworthy, because Obamacare already covers that.
We passed right to try.
And an entire 2 patients so far have been given experimental medical treatment due to it.
We passed VA accountability and VA choice. We mobilized the largest response since the Second World War. We are doing an incredible job on the China virus.
No, we're not. Our per capita deaths are still pretty
But I'm
bad.
going to talk to you about that Thursday night. Will anybody be listening on Thursday night? And just very quickly, in the second term, among many other things, we'll continue with our military. We've built the strongest military by far.
Already had the strongest military by far before you increased the budget. Who are you trying to fight? Superman?
It was depleted. Hello, nice Marine back there. It was depleted like you wouldn't believe. We have the best jets and rockets and equipment of any kind. Tanks made in Ohio.
The military-industrial complex is another corporate scam designed to take money while producing objects that the American government doesn't really need or even want or will ever utilize.
Lima. Tanks made in Ohio. So we're going to create 10 million jobs, I think very easily in the first 10 months. They want to raise your taxes. You know, all my life I've heard as a politician, you like to lower taxes, right?
Because you're a simpleton who just thinks less taxes, more
It's
money.
the only election where somebody said, we're going to raise your taxes. They're going to raise your taxes, quadruple your taxes.
Biden wants to raise taxes from 21 to 28%, compared to 35% when you were entering office.
They're going to add on to the regulations so that all of these projects that we got started that are great projects, they won't be able to get built.
Because worker safety, inhabitant safety, environmental safety, all of the safeties, they matter.
So they're going to raise your taxes. They're going to raise your regulations, make it impossible to build a highway.
Biden's $2 trillion investment plan has infrastructure as a key centerpiece.
It used to take 17 years, 18 years, 20 years, 21 years, long time in some cases, to get approval to build a highway, right? We have it down to 2 years now. We're going to have it down to 1. And it may get rejected for environmental or safety reasons, but we're going to know it very quickly. We're not going to take 17 years.
The average time it takes is 4.7 years or so. Now, that's not ideal, but I'd rather have that if it means good environmental policies.
We could name highways. They took forever. End up costing 100 times more, and they're not as good. Some of them go in circles, to get to a point.
So many made-up lies.
They want to miss a certain nest. So let's spend $37 million to miss. Look, we've got to be smart. We've got to be smart. We've got to win an election. Also, we're going to create tax credits for companies that bring our jobs back from China and other countries and impose tariffs on countries that take advantage of the United States. And they've been taking advantage of us for years and years, and I've already done it in certain cases.
Oh, good grief, more trade wars.
We have countries that tariff us and we don't tariff them. So they tariff us. It's very simple. It's called reciprocal. They tariff us, we tariff them. We are going to fully fund law enforcement and hire more police.
The police are not only fully funded already, they're overfunded and also over-militarized. We need to retrain police to de-escalate, not shoot black men in the back 7 times while they're trying to enter their car. We also need specialists like on-site counselors to deal with situations that don't require a pair of handcuffs and a gun.
We're going to go with school choice, and we've made a lot of progress on school choice for every student in America.
In order for school choice to work, those children have to have transportation to the schools they choose. Unfortunately, that's impossible because, first of all, many of them are too poor to own cars, and second of all, you're not investing in public transportation. So what happens then? Those poor students have to stay at that public school, and since other students are moving away from the public school, money gets diverted away from those public schools, meaning that public school will have even less money and will do even worse, perpetuating the problem.
We're going to continue to expand opportunity zones. There's been nothing better. Don't forget.
As far as I know, opportunity zones haven't been shown to be particularly effective.
It was us together, that got criminal justice reform done. The greatest thing for the black community, African American community. They came and they said, we can't believe it. Obama didn't even try. And not only that, I got funded the historically black colleges and universities. I got them funded. They weren't funded. They were year to year. They didn't know if they were going to be around for another year. And they'd come in to the White House, and after 3 years, I said, why do you guys keep coming back? Well, it's a year-to-year deal. I said, that's not fair. So you have to come back every year. And we got them long-term financing and long-term funding. Nobody's done more for the historically black colleges and universities than Donald Trump.
I won't pretend he's done nothing on this front, but this is certainly hyperbole.
Nobody's done more for the African American community. No president has done as much as anybody since Abraham Lincoln. It's true.
You're a fucking idiot. Because of you, racial tensions are higher than ever.
That's true. Criminal justice reform.
Reform? You just ended the 17-year period where no federal executions were carried out. You are clearly still a punishment, retribution-based justice system.
Opportunity zones. But think of it, criminal justice reform, opportunity zones, the colleges and universities. What we've done has been amazing. But the most important thing is, prior to the virus, the greatest job numbers in the history of the African American community, the Hispanic community, and the Asian, as I said.
Yeah, you were just riding the wave of what Obama did.
So I just want to thank everybody. We're going to get rid of our sanctuary cities as soon as we can so that they don't protect. We put NASA back in action. NASA had grass growing through its runways.
No, you just continued programs that have been running since the Obama years, except you were here for the launches, which are much more flashy.
It had grass growing through the cracks of its runways. It was closed, essentially just a disaster. Now it's the #1 space center anywhere in the world by far. You saw the ships going up. And for some reason, a lot of rich people like rockets going up. And so we say, let's lease them our beautiful launching areas and let them send all the rockets. Let them pay for it. But we'll be landing on Mars. We're going to the moon. We're going to Mars. We'll be the first on Mars. Let's see if that happens. We have to do it. If we're here, it's going to happen. If somebody else is here, probably not. But I just want to, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're incredible warriors. You have incredible strength. You have unbelievable intelligence.
Oh, this is just ridiculous and obviously false virtue signaling.
I think we have the greatest base of support anywhere, at any time, any election, and people are starting to find that out.
Whatever makes you feel better, I guess.
They found it out in 2016, and I will be honest, this election, I believe we have far greater enthusiasm in this election.
That's right.
And we had a level that was a record because they still don't believe what happened. They said, where are all these people coming from, right?
We love you.
People that were great Americans that never voted, but they were great because they didn't like who they were watching or looking. People were great. They didn't vote. I'll never forget a congressman from Tennessee came up.
I don't care about your Tennessee story. Besides their music industry, Tennessee can fuck off.
These are people that never were political people. They never wore a pin in their life having to do with politics. It's been an incredible experience for me. It's been an incredible experience, I think, for everyone. And I'll tell you what, next year is going to be it's going to be a great, great year. It's going to be a year of tremendous success. We're fighting off this horrible thing that was delivered by China.
China never delivered anything. People delivered it, and you let it get out of hand.
and it was by China, and we're never going to forget it, and I let them know. We're never going to forget what they did.
Blaming a whole country or race of people based on what a few people did? I'm trying to find the word for what that is. Oh, right. Racism.
Because you know what? We're going to do great economically. We're going to do better economically than we did last year. You had the best year in the history of your state. But we're going to do better economically than we did last year.
I mean, sure, if you keep pumping money into the economy, the national debt is going to skyrocket yet again, but you could do it in the short term like you always do.
But we can never forget the 175,000 people, which will go up. Remember this, though. We saved millions.
Wyatt, you fucked up. Own it.
Be very, very careful. This is going to be, and I really believe this is the most important election in the history of our country.
It is.
Don't let them take it away from you. Don't let them take it away.
The chair announces that Donald J. Trump, having received a majority of these votes entitled to be cast at the convention, has been unanimously elected as the Republican Party nominee for President of the United States.
What a fucking annoying voice.
I hope you realize the difference between Republican and Democrat conventions. Our nominees show up.
Please let someone be a carrier.